Hey, Ray. Hey, Ray.
Button up everything. Let yours be the last one to be closed.
Yeah, they derailed back there. Looks like it.
I could feel it when it broke. I felt that thing jumping. I just couldn't believe that. Let me get the
Well, I did. And
all right, Troy, now hold together back there. All right. Here. Troy. Here you are.
No, somebody else has it. I think there was 20. They're not going to let us all here.
this is Suffolk Station.
This isn't where the train, where we got on the train. This is different. But it's not very far. John? Where's Jeremy? Jeremy, come on.
Okay, poor Lily, let's go find the 7-Eleven. I know it's going to be right around the corner.
That's the best thing to do, I'd say. Where they go, we go. Well, you know what? Every car get it.
Your face all dirty? Just a little. It's cleaner than it was.
And Ross, recapping the highlights of today's derailment, 1,200 people, mostly Norfolk and Western employees and their guests, were on board the train headed for Petersburg. Of the 23-car express, 12 of those cars derailed. At least 50 people injured, 15 to 20 of those seriously hurt. Norfolk and Southern is on the scene now, trying to determine what happened. And a special Norfolk and Southern cleanup crew has been called in. They will begin the task of lifting the cars off the track. We should add that all rail traffic between Lambert's Point and Suffolk has been brought to a halt as a result of the derailment. And a hopper car train stopped just short, about a half a mile short of the accident. Of course, we'll have a complete report and update tonight at 11. This is Paula Miller with this live News Cam 3 report in Chesapeake.
An excursion train carried more than 1,000 passengers. It jumped the tracks in the remote area of the Dismal Swamp. That made it extremely difficult for rescue workers to get to the injured. The most critically injured were airlifted out. Paula Miller was there and has this report.
The scene looked like an outdoor hospital. Some of the injured were carried on stretchers to waiting ambulances. The most seriously hurt were airlifted to local hospitals. Others walked to a nearby treatment site with the help of aides, and still others waited on the sidelines for help to come to them.
To go down this direction, go down in this direction. There's a train coming this way, or you can go down here to this train. We got to get you to move right now.
160 of the train's estimated 1,000 passengers suffered fractures, bumps, and bruises when their Petersburg-bound 611 engine, hauling 24 cars, derailed in a remote area of Chesapeake. Carl Gleason and his family of Norfolk were on board one of the 13 cars that derailed.
It was a big jolt, as if we'd run over a little bump or something, and then it was just hang on. It was skidding and screeching, the sound of brakes, and then you could tell the car leaning, and it was off the track, and it was just getting out.
Some didn't get out and remained trapped in the overturned food car for about an hour. Luckily, there were 2 doctors and 3 nurses on board. They immediately went to work on the injured, while emergency medical crews arrived on the scene. The passengers were Norfolk and Western and Norfolk Southern employees, their families, and invited guests. Car host Ted Harnagel says there was no warning trouble was imminent.
We weren't exceeding the speed limit on it, I'm sure of that, but I really couldn't tell you exactly how fast it was going. But then all of a sudden it started bumping, and then they started putting the brakes on. Immediately the brakes went on.
It could have been a lot worse. They were fortunate about what happened. It could have turned out to be a lot worse, but like we said, the people that were involved, they stabilized people until we got here, and then once we got everybody here and got coordinated, we got them out.
Company crews are working round the clock to clear the wreckage from the scene and repair damaged tracks. Rail service between Lambert's Point and Norfolk and the wreckage site has been halted, and an investigation is underway to determine what happened. Paula Miller, WTKR News, Chesapeake.
After the most seriously injured were flown directly from the accident site to hospitals, work began to classify and care for the rest of the passengers. That process is known as triage. As Bruce Berry explains, the remote accident location made that job more difficult.
There were 2 triage centers, one at a grade crossing 6 miles east of the accident and another about a half a mile away, a parking lot where the helicopters could land. About 125 passengers were brought out aboard the train's 2 rear cars, which had stayed on the tracks. Stretcher cases were unloaded at the crossing. Then the train moved to the helicopter landing zone, where those who could walk, and some needed help, got off for another evaluation and transport.
Is there any more coming out from down there?
We got 4 down there now. What I want to do is send this ambulance and that other ambulance down there, pick those up, transport to Port and General. If you got an injured here, go ahead and put them on one of these units.
That's what I told him. Okay, let's put him on this unit right here. Okay, who's the crew?
I'm one of the
crew. Take your ambulance back, unload this patient, and take him to Portsmouth General Hospital, okay?
Okay.
What I'm doing is basically triaging, setting up the LZ area, getting the people that are most critical out on helicopters to the various hospitals.
Now, you've got everybody about out of here now. All right.
Yeah. Chief Murphy was down here at the scene, and he was basically give you a better idea.
Okay, is this one ready to go?
Yeah, I told him to take this ambulance and go.
I got that unit going on down there now. We got 4 patients, okay?
Let's release the helicopters.
They're
all
ready
of them.
to go.
Okay, let me tell him.
Okay.
It turned out the helicopters weren't needed at the second triage site. The worst cases were taken by ambulance, and most of the rest were loaded aboard buses, many to go to hospitals just for a check, Others back to Lambert's Point, where the day's excursion had begun. Virtually every hospital close enough received patients. Regina Mobley was at Norfolk General.
The 5 people most critically injured in the accident were taken to the hospital by air. Once the Nightingale touched down, nurses and technicians wasted no time getting the patients into a waiting ambulance for a transport to the trauma unit. Norfolk General Hospital has a level 1 trauma unit, which means it can handle any type of medical emergency.
We have trauma teams that are made up of the trauma doctor, anesthesiologists, nurses, and so on. And 5 trauma teams were mobilized for this accident.
There was no time to rest with a Navy helicopter right behind the Nightingale. In about 3 minutes, the crew unloaded 2 patients, rolled them over to an ambulance for ground units, and was off again. With such a hectic pace, good communication was essential.
We're able to determine through talking over the airways with Nightingale how many patients we're going to get, and then the trauma teams are mobilized. We have a trauma center in there, so we have beds and areas designated simply for trauma patients. So
2 others injured in the accident were taken to Norfolk General by ground units. 58 people were taken to Maryview Hospital, 51 to Louise Obasi, 28 to Chesapeake General, and 18 to Portsmouth General Hospital.
Get some answers.
And if you like hand-hewn furniture with a personal touch, Don Roberts knows 2 Chesapeake woodworkers who just might fit the bill.
Train to find out what may have caused the steam excursion to derail yesterday in the Dismal Swamp. 13 cars left the track. About 200 people were injured, 7 seriously. The Safety Board, along with the Federal Railroad Administration and Norfolk Southern, are working together to determine why the cars jumped the tracks. Safety Board Vice Chairman Patricia Goldman told reporter Gene Kapp investigators will be at the crash site for several days looking for clues.
We might have involved areas that we will be concentrating on or be looking at the track to see the condition of the track, at the switches, at the wheels of the cars, documenting the damage to the cars to see if there was anything from a mechanical standpoint that may have contributed to the accident.
Goldman says information about the derailment will be released as it becomes available, but she says it could take as long as 4 months before a final report is issued.
Emergency repairs have been completed on the Norfolk Southern tracks in Chesapeake, and the line is open again barely a day after an excursion train carrying more than 1,000 rail employees and guests derailed near the Suffolk-Chesapeake border. Bruce Berry reports the emergency repairs were done by a crew that considers this sort of thing routine.
Less than 24 hours after the accident, the coal trains were running to Lambert's Point again. Dave Dick and his crew were in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania when the call went to Hulcher Emergency Services yesterday. They didn't get here until midnight, but by dawn they had the eastbound line open. That part was easy. Then they began lifting the 14 derailed passenger cars back onto the undamaged end of the westbound track and rolled away. They cut away and shoved the bent rails aside, then re-leveled the bed. They brought in prefab track sections and bolted them together. And by late afternoon, the westbound track was back in service. Tomorrow morning, 3 of the most heavily damaged cars will be recovered, and the Hulcher crew can go back home. They do this for all the railroads on the East Coast. More than 200 people were hurt in the accident, some seriously, but no one died. And by tomorrow, it may be hard to tell that anything happened at the scene of the accident. In the meantime, the investigation into the accident's cause continues. Bruce Barry, WTKR News, on the Norfolk Southern tracks in...
...away for inspection. While that investigation continues, the first damage lawsuits have been filed in the accident that hurt more than 200 people. An attorney representing 2 Virginia Beach men filed suit against Norfolk Southern seeking $200,000 in damages.
Derailments don't just happen, they're caused. No train leaves the track unless it's either defective equipment or negligence in the operation of that train.
And Norfolk Southern's vice chairman was at the controls when that train went off the tracks, but there was no evidence that he was at fault.
In Portsmouth Circuit Court today, Willard Moody filed the suit on behalf of 2 of the passengers, G.R. Pittman and P.A. Rhodes, both former railroad employees who live in Virginia Beach. Moody said he filed suit promptly to protect the evidence. Each of his clients is asking $100,000 in damages, saying the accident and their injuries were caused by the negligence of their former employer.
There's always a cause for derailment. There's no train going to leave a railroad track unless something is wrong, and we think there was something wrong here. So they have a right to make a claim.
Moody's theory of the accident points to a defective switch that sends one car one way and the next car the other. Federal officials are investigating. Norfolk Southern declines comment on either the probe or the suit.
This is Regina Mobley in Portsmouth. The want ads are full of listings for